Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Women in Motorsports. Joe Samdiego here, along with Daniel Zeri from Racers, the girls behind the helmet. We got a lot to talk about, including Taylor Hagler performance, the spectacular Katherine Legge, the Al Qubaisi sisters, a lot. But we first want a big thank you to Ed for buying a cup of coffee for us last Saturday. If you want to buy us a coffee, whether it's for the Grid Network, myself, or Daniel, be sure to just click on the link in the video description. We'll display your name for 1 week on the air. And a big thank you to Colin, the show, Mark, and Robin, our Patreon sponsors, for investing in the Grid Network and investing, ensuring that we're on the air and growing the entire time. And Daniel, I gotta say, Taylor Hagler, her career, her potential, that is just growing with the accomplishments she's just doing year after year. And this one, I think, this one really got it to where a lot of people were like, hey, she's good. She could go somewhere.
Oh, yes, definitely. Firstly, good morning, everyone. As you said, I think last year for Taylor was really her breakthrough year. She really showed that she was one to watch, both in TCR category, that in the GT3, because of course she also made her debut in the GT3 machinery as she was racing in the SRO GT America World Challenge America. And of course won the championship in the IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge in TCR at her second year, the second full season in the series. She became the first female champion in the series and the second ever female champion on the IMSA platform, succeeding Christina Nielsen, who won two championships in the IMSA GTD class. Taylor Hagler, as we said, I wrote the article in the previous days, the report about her race in Daytona, the season opener, and I said that it's in motorsport racing, winning is very hard, but it's not the hardest thing. The hardest thing is keep winning year after year. And what we've seen from Taylor, that she started the season just as strong as last year, and this is the most difficult thing, also because she changed the car. Because they moved from, she's always in the same team with Brian Hart Autosport, but they changed the car they went from the Veloster Hyundai to the Elantra TCR and new race car. So this is also something that she needs to get used to, and they had only 3 days of testing before the season opener at Daytona. And I think she is really getting up to speed very quickly in that car. She's always with the same teammate, Michael Lewis, so they're working well together. They were topping in a testing day prior to the race at the Aurora before the Rolex. But then they struggled a little bit in qualifying. There was really difficult weather conditions, we all know, in Daytona. And they started from P11 on the grid, which was definitely, of course, for a 4-hour race, it's not that bad, but still they had to do some extra work during the race. Taylor started the race, did the first 1 hour and a half, and really kept moving up the field, kept moving up the order, great overtaking moves, especially in one particular one when she was battling with the sister car of Bob Vickens, or Robert Vickens, that was returning back to racing after, of course, his major accident in IndyCar. Did very well. He finished third, so it was another remarkable return, another very exciting sporting story for him. And Taylor had a very interesting battle with him on track. She managed to get into second place, and then at one point she even led the race before handing over to Michael Lewis in the second half of the race. Then they had a penalty, so that was a little bit more of a challenge for them. They recovered very well at the end of the race and finished second. So that was another very important result for Taylor Hagler and Michael Lewis. And without that penalty, maybe they could have won the race, because of course They were very comfortable at the end. The gaps were very short, so that probably could have been another victory for them. It was still her best result ever in Daytona, which is really encouraging for the rest of the Michelin challenge, pilot challenge this year. Of course, Taylor was not the only female driver on track in that race. There were also Sheena Monk, also in the GS category. She was P12 at the end. Pretty solid race for Sheena, who also changed the platform, changed the car. They went from the McLaren GT4 to the Toyota Supra GT4. That's also another first race where she had to to get up to speed with the machinery. And also Haley Deegan, the NASCAR star, she was back in Daytona in sports cars. It was not the first time that she was racing in the Mission Pilot Challenge at Daytona in 2020. She was already racing there. Had a very promising race until mid-race, until the mid-race mark when she was in contention for an overall podium. But then in a race start, she spun. Then they picked up a couple of penalties. It was a bit of a messy second half of the race for Hailey Deegan and Chase Briscoe in the Mustang, the Ford Mustang, the GT4 Challenger. Ultimately, they finished P24, so not probably the race that they wanted. But they had pace to finish on the overall podium, so that was also very encouraging for Hailey Deegan. But as we said, Taylor Hagler is really one of the drivers to watch this year, both in TCR again and in GT3. I'm really excited to see how she will do again in GT3.
Yeah, very excited to see how she does 2022. It's going to be, I think, really exciting. Taylor has a lot of potential, and what we saw at Daytona, wow. Daytona is one of those tracks where if you get a good race, good performance there, you're going to get a lot of attention. One driver that did get a lot of attention this year before the Rolex 74 was Katherine Legge. Of course, prior to the race, a lot of talk of how she was the only female driver out of over 61 entries, 200 drivers, just one female racer, Katherine Legge. She was with the number 99 Hardpoint Motorsports, white red Porsche, beautiful livery, but they were starting way towards the back. Of course, they do the split starts where you got the prototypes up front and then GT Pro, GTD in a separate group that'll start the race. And that team overall, they overcome a lot from not exactly the greatest qualifying effort to just putting down consistent laps, putting down just a hard effort, big time results. 10th place finish, top 10 finish in the Rolex 24, which saw 17 caution periods. A lot of cautions. We saw some pretty big crashes as well too during that race. Katherine Legge, of course, being part of that team effort. And of course, Katherine Legge's no stranger to the Rolex 24 hours, to IMSA and success in IMSA. Daniel, I have to ask you, when it comes to this year, especially the number, we saw a good fair amount of coverage for GTD, GTD Pro. When it came to Catherine's, in particular her stints, how much did her stints contribute to the overall success of Hardpoint's Motorsports number 99 Porsche?
Well, let's say that they had a difficult qualifying at the road before the Rolex. Katherine was not in the two driver lineup that went for the qualifying race. And unfortunately, once she got behind the wheel for the first time during the race, she was the last one, the last driver out of the four lined up by Team Hardpoint to get behind the wheel of the Porsche 911 GT3. And unfortunately, at that point, which was towards the night, their race was pretty much compromised already. So she was very unlucky this year because they had pace probably for a podium. And Katherine, during her stints, she did the fastest lap of that car during the night, even after they had the accident and all the repairs. They had a 1 hour and 15 minutes stop for repairs after an accident by Rob Ferriol, unfortunately. which was the driver driving just before Katherine. He had a contact with a LMP2 car, and there was damage both to the splitter, and also the steering rack. So there was quite a lot of damage for that car. And once Katherine had her first stint, as I said, they were already like 32 laps behind the leaders in the class. So it was already a very, very difficult race, but they really managed to recover. And just like last year, remember that last year it was the first 24-hour race for Team Hardpoint, which is a very new team to do the IMSA category. And they finished in the top 10 last year as well at the first try. This year they managed again a top 10, very last minute top 10 actually, because Ferry was then doing the very final stint, and he had to complete a certain amount of laps to overtake a competitor that had just retired. So they had to match the same lap times to get into the top 10, and they managed to do that. And Referral actually, he did very, very well. Of course, he's the bronze driver, he's the less experienced driver of the quartet, but did very well, which is really encouraging. As Katherine said after the race, that is the most encouraging thing for the remainder of the season, because of course Katherine Legge and Rob Ferrier will do the full IMSA season, with Stefan Wilson joining the team for the endurance races. So I think it was not the best race that Katherine would have hoped for before the race, because of course they had pace for a top three, I would say, for a podium, even though they were starting quite far behind. And Katherine showed that during her stint with her lap times. But then that accident, unfortunately, really made things more difficult for them.
Yeah, being part of that accident did make it a lot more harder for that 99 team. One of the big things is a top 10 finish, and it's just amazing to say, 10th place, we had pace for a podium. We could have been up there, and I just think that would have really taken some big headlines if it was Katherine on the podium. And she's still, I mean, everything that team overcame a lot of adversity to get that top 10 finish. The pace they had was really good as well. And one of the big things I think with Katherine Legge throughout the IMSA season, and of course, she got more racing plans this year. We'll definitely be following her. And I think that's really going to just get her name out there and hopefully get some opportunities in IMSA as well as other racing series in the future, because I think she still has a lot to prove on the track when it comes to sports car racing. Very well known career in Indy cars, even though a couple of NASCARs. Sports car racing seems to be a really good fit, and of course, we're going to be following Katherine Legge as well as this year with IndyCar. We got Tatiana Calderon, so we got a lot of female racers that I think it's going to be fun to follow this year. And two, that we usually follow, the Al Qubaisi sisters. I know you had a pretty productive weekend following them and their racing career.
Yeah, absolutely. Both Amna and Hamda are racing this year together in the Formula Regional Asian Championship, which this year is racing mainly only in the UAE, so on their basically on their courtyard. And they've been starting the season very well for both Amna and Hamda, because Hamda, her very first Formula 3 race, she did a P12, which is very encouraging, because of course she has been racing in Formula 4 in the past couple of years. That was the very first time in racing in a Formula 3 car. They both racing for the Abu Dhabi Racing by Prema team. Amna, her sister, as we see here, she has been the first Middle Eastern woman to take part in a motorsport test in Formula E. But also she has been the first woman to stand on a podium in the Formula One support Formula One support race. She won the race in 2019, the trophy round of the Formula 4 UAE. But also she then raced in Italy in the Formula 4, which is very, very competitive series. Her sister was the first woman to stand on the podium, in the overall podium of the Formula 4 Italian Championship. So both of them are really groundbreaking women in the Middle East and in motor racing. And also won 6 races in Formula 4, making her the most successful female racer in all Formula 4 championships globally. So really two drivers that have the talent to progress into Formula 3. And so we are watching their first steps in Formula 3 in the Asian Championship this winter. We've hopefully seeing them also in Europe this summer. And Hamza, the first race in Abu Dhabi, she was P12, which was very, very close to the top 10 and potentially to a reverse grid pole position. Hamna in race 2 scored points with a 10th place finish, which was the first time that she her best result in Formula 3, of course. And then in race 3, she had that massive accident at the start when a car in front of her stalled on the grid, and she couldn't avoid the stalling car and had a very, very huge accident, luckily with no physical harm. But the car was pretty much destroyed. And so with this short calendar, it was a bit of a challenge for the team to prepare the car in time for round 2, which was in Dubai, just 5 days later, basically. And they had to change the whole car, the whole chassis, everything new. We all know that when the car has all new components, it's a little bit of a challenge for drivers to get used to that, to get back their setups and the things that they like the car to be driven. So that was a little bit of a challenge. Also, she had to miss the first practice session because of that, which didn't help, of course. But I would say that again they did very well considering the circumstances in Dubai. Hamda had a technical problem in Abu Dhabi the week before, which prevented her from scoring points in race 2 and race 3. She kind of also bounced back in Dubai. She was P16 and P17. And Hannah, I would say that she was starting last because, of course, of the difficult qualifying. She had the all new car, as we mentioned. She started last out of a very, very huge field of 27 cars and moved up 14 position over the course of the 3 races. So I would say that was a pretty encouraging weekend for Anna. And also from Hamda, which she says that she has to work a little bit more in qualifying because she has race pace. She was like 4/10 of the fastest Prema car. So and remember, she's only 2 weeks into her Formula 3 career. So I would say that she's definitely one that we need to keep an eye on in the next races. And I would like just to read a message that she sent after the race. She said that it was a good learning curve. Well, this is Anda. Qualifying didn't go as planned, and so I made the races quite difficult. However, the pace is there. In race 3, I was only 4/10 of the fastest of the Prema race pace-wise, and I think it's a really big step. I just need to work more on qualifying and also adapting to the track conditions when driving. Well, Amna, her sister, told us that, of course, surely the new car is getting used to everything new, so it was a little bit of a challenge in such a complex schedule. And of course, she also said that it was very tough. We got the new car prepared during the free practice just before qualifying. It was hard to be quick already, but we managed to get better and better throughout the race weekend. And of course, she managed to gain 7 positions in race 2 and 7 positions in race 3, scoring a P16 also. So we say that hopefully we will see them climbing the ranks more and more. And the round 3 is always in Dubai, starting from Saturday and Sunday. It's going to be a little bit of a different track configuration from the one we used last weekend, so still things can change, but we're very confident to see both the Al Qubaisi sisters making good progress.
Definitely the progress throughout their careers. It's always really exciting to follow. And of course, we know with their careers progress. And one of the big things we've been following as well here on the show and part of the Grid Network is the W Series. Of course, a lot of female racers participating in that to try to progress their careers in a series where female racers only. So it definitely allows them to get the spotlight and hopefully score some of those super points, get into the bigger series. And I know last week, Daniel, we discussed about the new season that was released. Still, there's been a lot of news, some rumors going around about the upcoming season. We know there was some testing going on right here in the United States over in Arizona. When it comes to W Series, what's some of the latest news that we're starting to hear in regards to 2022 and potentially beyond?
Yeah, so as you said, there is some testing going on right now. It was a 5-day testing in Arizona at Inde Motorsports Ranch, which is not one of the tracks that usually we see major series going on. So it was also kind of interesting to see a series going there. Historically, W Series has been testing at Almeria in Spain, which it has been, of course, chosen due to its weather. It's very arid because, of course, you don't want to lose many days with rain. Last year, they had to test in Wales, and of course, the UK has quite an history of being a rainy country. So, and they had to miss like one and a half day due to rain. So that's not what you want when you have that little time to test, and especially to assess new potential drivers. So they went for Arizona, which of course the chances of getting the rain were pretty low, even though yesterday it did rain a little bit, which shortened the final session of the day. But there are 15 drivers that are being assessed to potentially join the series in 2022. Some of the names are pretty known to us. One of them is Lena Buller, for example. She has been racing already in Formula 3 machinery in the Formula Regional European Championship this year. So she is one of the, I would say, the most likely candidates to join the series. But also some of the drivers that raced in the Spanish Formula 4, which historically has brought a lot of female talent to W Series. For example, Martin Garcia, Belen Garcia, Nerea Marti, Irina Sidorkova as well, who was racing in Spanish Formula 4. So, and this year we had two female racers in that category, Lola Loving-Foss and Emily De Heus. Both of them have been selected for the test of W Series, so definitely they are also some of the most likely to get through. But more drivers, especially many US-based drivers, Chloe Chambers, for example, I would say that she has good experience in that car. One of the main things that we saw in this test is that they're testing in Formula 4 cars, not the Formula 3 regional cars that will be used in W Series. This is because the experience level in the drivers that have been selected is very diverse. So there are a lot of karting drivers that probably do not have yet the experience to join W Series this year, but still testing with them is a good opportunity for them because, first of all, because they're starting to get international coverage, attention, which is always good from a series like W Series, which is one of the the main target of that series. And then they're receiving some good coaching from the old team behind W Series, the drivers. Let's say that Belen Garcia is there. She's setting the benchmark times. Belen Garcia was racing last year in W Series. And so she joined the new candidates to set some benchmark times. She's coaching them, so it's also interesting to see. Then we have Hannah Greenemeyer, who is an American 18-year-old driver that is a karting champion, is a national karting champion in the US. So definitely is one to watch for the future, even though she doesn't have single-seater experience so far. There are quite interesting other drivers. Julia Ayub, for example, she has been two-time finalist in the Girls on Track program together with the FBA, the Ferrari Driver Academy, and a couple of more others really interesting candidates. So I would say that after there's no lap times so far because W Series historically do not release the lap times, and I would say that this is something that I agree with because they already have the pressure, to try to get into W Series. So they know they have few days to try to get into the championship and do their best they can. And so I think having the pressure also from the outside, from the media, with the lap times being released, it's a bit of an unnecessary extra pressure for them. So I think it's a good thing that they are keeping a little bit shielded from that. We can fully focus on track. And then let's see who can make it into the grid. And I think after we know how many of them will make the cut into 2022 grid, W Series will decide how many of the drivers that did not make into the top eight, well, actually top nine, because we know that Ina Shirokova has been confirmed, even though she was not in top eight. Some of them will definitely make it back into the grid. We still don't know how many because that depends on who are the drivers that are ready to make the leap into next year, into this year's W Series. Of course, they are very young. There are drivers like 16-year-olds, so I think probably they're not ready yet, or maybe physically. Formula 4 it's not the same as Formula 3 physically, so I think also it's a little bit demanding from them. They will have to assess who is ready. But yeah, still a lot going on, and I think in a couple of weeks' time we will know more.
Yeah, we'll learn more, and it's really interesting, especially W Series is very unique where, we got to where all the teams, they're going to a team concept this year, but before it was all the cars by W Series. So you had to be one of the fastest. And then, of course, if you were not in the series the year before, you had to prove in testing. It gives me a lot of vibes almost of like here in the United States in national football, like when you have a bunch of college athletes, they go through what's called the combine, where they have to do a running test, bunch of other performance tests. Those results are not shared. And at the end, we don't know those results until either A, the media leaks some of them out, or B, the player gets drafted to the NFL, or if they don't, then they share like, oh, my performance wasn't great. And just really, the W Series, besides giving women the platform to race and show their potential, I think it is also created to where it feels like this is such a new level of motorsports where we don't have, you don't see this in NASCAR where you have a bunch of drivers going to a test to try out to hopefully get the attention. NASCAR is just like any other motorsport. So you have sponsorships you can get, and if you have a good racing resume, here it's very different. You got to prove in testing you're fast. Once you're in there, though, you have to prove you could win and get in that top eight or be one of the two youngest drivers for the academy program. It is really interesting. And of course, we're going to be following W Series all year long right here on the Grid Network. And of course, we encourage all our viewers to definitely check out the website, Racers Behind the Helmet. There you get a full listing of all the female racers around the world, including, as we mentioned, Taylor Hagler, going back to the podium, top 20 debut for Laura Hayes in the Mazda MX-5. And of course, we see that Julia, she's going to be, of course, part of the Grid Network for MotoGP coverage and all the stories. And I know, Daniel, the calendar this week, it seems pretty light. I know we got February coming up. So when it comes to some of the upcoming races, what are some of the upcoming races you're really looking forward to?
Not much going on this weekend. There will be of course, the back-to-back calendar of Formula 3 and Formula 4 in the UAE, with the Al Qubaisi sisters racing again in Dubai in the Formula 3 Asian Championship, and then Victoria Blokina in Formula 4. She's also very young. We spoke about her last week. She's making good progress in the Formula 4 UAE. She's also racing again in Dubai. And then there will be the Race of Champions, which is one of the most interesting events of the year for motor racing. It will be held in Sweden. And for the first time in quite some years, there will be a female on track, and that's of course Jamie Chadwick, racing for Team UK. She will be racing with David Coulthard in the Team UK. I think the last female in the Race of Champions was Susie Wolf. 5 or 6 years ago. I'm going by heart, but I think she's finally we will have another female in the Race of Champions, and so we're very excited to see Jamie going shoulder to shoulder with some of the most acclaimed motorsport heroes currently active.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very exciting to follow Jamie Chadwick in Race of Champions and see what she could do. And we encourage everybody to be sure to subscribe to the Grid Network. So next week we'll recap her performance, and of course be sure to check out our sponsor, Public.com. There you get $5 in free stock. You use the referral code GRIDnet, and of course Patreon, Buy Me Coffee to invest in the Grid Network. Of course, Buy Me Coffee is a one-time contribution, so thank you to Ed for last Saturday buying a cup of coffee. You can buy it myself, Daniel, or the Grid Network coffee. Just be sure to comment in your contribution. And our Patreon is our subscription-based supporters. Colin, the show, Mark, and Robin. I know Colin's approaching about 2 years supporting the Grid Network. The show, Mark, and Robin, they're all within their first year. Be sure to get your name on the screen. Help us stay on the air. And visit our social media networks. We're on TikTok, where we post Pick a Winner. It's growing each and every week. And then, of course, we're on Facebook, Twitch, right here on YouTube, where you can subscribe and follow us. And, of course, Grid Network definitely is going to be very exciting. Of course, we encourage everyone to follow Racers Behind the Helmet for all the latest news when it comes to female racers from around the world, including the United States. For Daniel Zeri at Racers and Girls Behind the Helmet, I'm Joe Samaniego. Thank you for watching today's program. We'll see you next time.
Don't be an anonymous investor. Join the stock market social media platform, Public.com. Invest any amount of money and share with friends and new friends. Discover new opportunities, such as new companies and potential business partners, and useful tools for beginners, and share your experience with friends on Public.com. Link in the video description gets you $5 for being a Grid Network viewer. Use the referral code GRIDnet for your free $5 to invest and start investing and networking on Public.com.